on market shares. The March jobs report is out, and following its low expectations, we're going to take a closer look.
Plus, one major motor company is setting a goal in the electric vehicle race. We'll take a look at the industry's growth.
And YouTube TV announcing new NFL Sunday ticket prices, and they'll really make you want to hold on to your wallets. Market share starts right now. Good morning and welcome back to Citrus TV's Best Auxiliary Show, Market Shares.
Very true, very true.
Thank you for spending your Sunday with us. I'm Bradley Hoppenstein.
And I'm Teagan Brown. We begin today, as always, with our market update.
All right, let's take a look at the Dow to start us off. It's notching its fourth straight positive week, up a little over 1% on the week. Overall, a good week for the Dow on inflation news, but taking a dip towards the end of the week, and that's on that retail sales report being weaker than expected. We'll have more on that for you later in the show. Disappointing retail numbers offsetting excitement around some corporate earnings, including JP Morgan Chase. Also, more on that later in the show. But keep in mind, first bank earnings since the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank being good news was still good news for the markets overall. Let's get to the NASDAQ, Teagan.
Let's get to the NASDAQ. You know, a lot happening here this week. Two big stocks really contributing to this rise. That would be Fastenal Co., which rose 1.7%. And, you know, Lucid Group dropped 6.3%, which honestly didn't have as much of an impact as analysts thought it would, up 148 points, 1.24% this week, ending at 12,123.47.
And the S&P 500, a pretty steady week for the S&P as well, up about 52 points on the week, ending at 4,137. Weekly gains, as you can see, it's up on predictions of the Fed finally, believe it or not, stopping its raising of interest rates. The Fed has raised rates, I believe it's 9 times since March last year. It looks like that could finally be stopping. So up on good futures news and the good banking numbers, mainly JP Morgan pulling up all the indexes this week, Teagan.
And you know, let's move on to our market movers. We'll start out with BlackRock, the national investment company. They actually beat their prediction of their adjusted earnings. They hit 7.93 rather than 778. So a great week for BlackRock, up 38.98 points overall. Their revenue was $4.2 billion, which is down 10% from a year ago. But right now they're still on that upward climb, and analysts really think that it's going to rise even more. All
right, let's take a look at JP Morgan. As I said, first bank earnings since the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank last month. Record revenue for JP Morgan this week, shares jumping over 7%. Revenue being $39 billion versus about $36 billion expected. Net interest income surging almost 50% from a year ago. Profit jumping 52%. Big week for JP Morgan. Record revenue. They're pulling up the banking sector. They're pulling up the indexes. Teagan, let's take a look at Dish.
Let's take a look at Dish. You know, a lot happening with Dish this week. Really down compared to just 24 years ago. It's a 24-year low, and this is having an impact on the second largest satellite TV provider. That's according to a report from Bloomberg. Their stock dropped to just $8.08, down from $30 over a year ago.
All right. Well, job openings falling below 10 million in February for the first time in nearly 2 years. That's according to the Labor Department, who says the decline is over 500,000 from January. Wall Street was looking for about 10.5 million jobs. The report showing February's numbers just shy of 10 million. The Fed likes a hot labor market as a way to bring down inflation. It's raised interest rates, like I said, now 9 times since March last year, but those moves don't seem to be doing much for the job situation. Before February's jobs report, openings were outnumbering available workers by, nearly 2 to 1. The new numbers bring that ratio down to less than 1.7 to 1.
And inflation has slowed down for a 9th straight month, according to data from the month of March. Consumer prices increased 5% from this time last year, but they are down from where they were at 6% at the end of February. March's data shows the smallest annual gain since May of 2021. Prices edged up 0.1%, but that's compared to 0.4% in February.
And TikTok's parent company ByteDance has another new app climbing the charts. This one's called Lemon 8. That's the number 8. It's a lifestyle-focused app, now up to number 9 on the App Store charts. It's basically a combination of Instagram and Pinterest, but it operates similar to TikTok with following and For You pages. So ByteDance wants to keep serving you content rather than having you find it yourself, but Lemon 8 is more focused on influencers and products than vertical videos. The bigger story, though, ByteDance is making it clear it's not going away, and it has other bets if that TikTok ban eventually goes through. Lemon 8 gaining popularity with ByteDance paying influencers to post on the platform for now, but the bigger question here, whether it can face a potential ban like the company's other major app.
And 22% of Americans oppose a TikTok ban. That data coming from a study conducted by Pew Research. And if you're wondering how many in that study are in favor of banning the app, it's actually more than half. Plus, more than a quarter of those asked were unsure of what they wanted. Pew Research did note that 40% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 29 had no idea TikTok is owned by a Chinese company. And on top of that, 88% of all the people in the study said they don't trust Chinese social media companies.
And just taking a look at that poll, Teagan, I mean, ages 18 to 29 making up nearly half of those opposing the ban, that doesn't surprise me too much.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much TikTok's target audience, but also I feel like we've been talking about a TikTok ban for a while now, for years
so
now,
long, yes.
And no movement.
Nothing's happened yet, certain states trying to take actions to do so, but we haven't seen anything concrete, and I'm still spending my nights scrolling through TikTok, so here we are.
Me as well.
Well, now we welcome into studio our financial analyst, Sean Dempsey. Sean, has inflation been affecting the markets this week?
Well, Teagan, inflation hasn't done much to the overall market in the last couple of days, but we are in another week full of uncertainty of whether a recession will happen in the back half of this year or not. But I'm not here to tell you that, nor do I know the answer to that question. Instead, three companies that are outlasting the shaky economy of the last 6 months are Ford, Boeing, and even Chipotle. Let's get things started with Ford. The company announced on Tuesday that they will invest about $1.3 billion in Canada to a new electrical vehicle hub. The plant will build the company's next generation of EVs. The Canadian investment is part of Ford's $50 million commitment to electrify their cars by 2026. Ford now joins GM and Tesla as leaders of electric vehicle production. Unlike Tesla, Ford's PE ratio sits at just under 9, which means the company's stock price is undervalued. So investors are looking for a long-term company to add to their portfolio, then Ford could be a good idea. Electric vehicles are a long way from being mainstream, but Ford could end up having the second largest market share in the sector. So looking at Ford stock, the stock peaked at $24 per share in January of 2022. That was when the company announced that they were going to start producing electric vehicles. But since then, over the past 6 months, Ford has kind of settled down on this $15 to $13 per share mark. Now let's switch gears from cars to planes. Boeing announced on Tuesday that the company delivered 64 planes to customers last month. That's the most since December. Boeing will resume selling their 787 Dreamliners in mid-March after addressing a data analysis issue. However, on Thursday, Boeing's stock price fell 5% after hours. This was after Boeing declared that it would halt deliveries of its 737 MAXs because of a supplier quality problem. So what do we do with this information? Well, it's no surprise that Boeing is once again running into production problems with its planes, but even with the issues, Boeing isn't having any demand problems. Boeing's Q1 deliveries topped rival Airbus for the first time in nearly 5 years. So looking at Boeing, the stock is up 75% since October. This is simply because of planes and traveling being more popular, but the stock is also just oversold, so people are starting to buy Boeing because it's a great value. And lastly, Chipotle announced this week a new version of their restaurant. By 2030, every Chipotle will use all electric equipment. Next year, more than 100 locations are already deciding to transition to the green alternative. So what's the reason for this? Well, Chipotle wants to be one of the only major food chains to start cutting its carbon emissions. Some of their locations will include solar panels on the roof and charging stations for electric vehicles. The news boosted Chipotle's stock price by 3% to end the week. So looking at Chipotle's stock chart, it's been going up and down over the past year, but what I want to point out is this $1,750 mark. That is a key resistance for Chipotle stock because that's its all-time high. It's never been above that. And what we want to see here is that Chipotle investors, if it goes any higher, we could see a very big positive move. But like we saw here in July, their earnings boosted them up to that $1,750 mark, but then it was rejected right back down. So just something to look forward to. Teagan, Bradley, that's all I got.
All right, Sean, thank you. After the break, a popular way to watch the NFL is changing rapidly. We'll have more after the break.
was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to Market Shares. Amazon may be a bit late to the party, but it quietly announced Thursday it's offering its AWS customers the chance to leverage some of the most popular new AI models. AWS getting into the AI game with Amazon adding a mix of some of its own AI models in addition to third-party ones. Amazon's are collectively called Titan. It's giving customers access through an API, meaning users can adapt their models to their specific needs. This essentially gives options to developers with how they want to use AI in their own products, but based on AWS, this is a similar approach to what Salesforce did in March. They're letting developers use AI models developed by third parties such as ChatGPT. It also marks, here's the important part, 4 of the 5 big tech companies planting their flags in the AI ground.
And I mean, let's take a look at the number of employees for each of these companies. Amazon clearly outnumbering all the competition. Microsoft, Meta, Meta, the huge one that has been working on AI kind of longer than a lot of these guys here. But Amazon with their, toolkit for developers, which is called Bedrock. But yeah, Amazon clearly outweighing all the others.
And also Apple with a good amount of AI employees, but we haven't seen them do much in the AI space. So that's going to be interesting as the AI race keeps heating up. Meanwhile, consumers in retail cutting their spending in March for the second straight month. After a 3% surge in January, retail sales are down 1% from February to March. The decline pretty much across the board, with automakers and other big ticket manufacturers leading the way. Excluding gas and car sales, sales falling a less dramatic 0.3%. Still a 2-month decline, and it's new evidence that the economy is cooling a bit. Consumers are still feeling inflation and high interest rates. Companies also posting fewer open jobs, so hiring is still slowing and layoffs ticking up.
And finishing up later today, the World Bank's Spring 2023 meetings. 2 of the biggest concerns at the doorstep of IMF and the World Bank are energy and poverty. Now, what the World Bank has said it's trying to do when it comes to the energy crisis is ramp up the transition from non-renewable resources, coal, natural gas, oil, to energy sources that drastically reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions related into the atmosphere like solar, wind, and water. And one of the World Bank's goals has always been to help struggling countries, they say, especially countries still rebounding from the pandemic. World Bank President David Malpass said, quote, "We need to break out of this cycle where the capital of the world is absorbed just in paying national debts and just in repaying people who already have money, and it needs to move into productive uses for new investment." And managing directors at JP Morgan must return to being in person in the office 5 days a week. This ends the hybrid work practice that they've been doing since during the pandemic, which resulted in 3 days in person.
Other roles in the company will stay hybrid, those employees being required to go in person only 3 days a week unless they have senior management approval to do something different. JP Morgan is a 60-story skyscraper, and the company says part of the motivation to go back will be new yoga and cycling rooms, meditation spaces, and more. That sounds like
interesting. That sounds like pretty great work to me.
Pretty good deal to me. Some yoga, some indoor cycling.
There's also a new food hall, I believe. Yeah, tons of new stuff.
I'm going to have to tell Spencer Condrel to get on some of that for us
Citrus
here
TV.
at Citrus TV. Most of us are big football fans. Some of us use NFL Sunday Ticket to keep track of our teams while we're here at SU. I know I'm one of those people.
Go Bills,
Go Dolphins.
Oh, okay.
Even better.
Well, sure, why not?
Well, the cost of Sunday Ticket is going to go up as it migrates from DirecTV to YouTube TV. Chilekasi Adele joins us now. Chile, how much are we talking here?
Brad, I wish I could give you an easy answer, but it is quite complicated. Let's take a look at YouTube's price structure. It includes some incentives for signing up before June 6th. If you have YouTube TV's base plan, you can add on Sunday Ticket for $249. You can bundle that with NFL Red Zone, as I know a lot of people like to watch, for $289 on top of that YouTube TV base plan, which normally runs about $73. The normal price will be $349 for just Sunday Ticket. The bundle with Red Zone will run you $389 plus that YouTube TV plan. Now, you don't have to buy YouTube TV to have Sunday Ticket. YouTube's primetime channels, which is more of a curation of content from different platforms, will also offer it this fall. You can get the standalone package now for the season for the pre-sale price of $349. If you want to bundle it with Red Zone, that'll run you about $40 more. The regular price will be $449 with the Red Zone bundle sitting at $489. Now, let's compare that to what DirecTV charged. The basic service cost about $294. If you wanted extras on that service, you paid about $655 for the season. This is all on top of being required to have DirecTV. That can cost anywhere from $65 to over $150 a month. Don't forget about those taxes and fees as well, like box fees and satellite dishes. So essentially, it does all come down to how you do it. YouTube's general price point is more expensive than what DirecTV offered for the base plan, but DirecTV's price point for the max plan was higher. Of course, that includes the fantasy channel, Red Zone, its own version of Red Zone. YouTube is at least trying to bring people in early with those $100 discounts.
Now, Chile, a lot of students here at SU use this to keep up with their favorite teams, myself included.
Yep.
Is YouTube making an effort to court them?
You know, Brad, if you want to watch the Dolphins on Sunday and you had DirecTV or you wanted to buy the student version of Sunday Ticket, DirecTV offered that for $120. We don't know yet if YouTube is going to offer a version of Sunday Ticket for students, so it's going to be interesting. You definitely look at it from an infrastructure perspective. A lot of students, especially on this campus, they don't have cable. What they have? Streaming sticks. They have Rokus, they have Fire TVs, Apple TVs. So the infrastructure is there. So if YouTube definitely wants to make that investment in trying to get a student plan out, most likely there's going to be a lot of people at colleges all across America wanting to watch their favorite teams that will subscribe to that.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so Chile, you know, there are some people who don't watch it on these streaming services. Instead, they go to bars and restaurants to enjoy a Bills game with their friends. What does all this mean for bars and restaurants? Some of them invested in DirecTV to drive in business. Some of them may not even have had this infrastructure.
Teagan, you love your Bills references, don't you? Oh my goodness. Listen, I spoke when the Yankees for baseball were having Prime Video, a lot of games airing on Prime Video over last season into this season. I spoke to the owner of Ale and Angus Pub downtown, and he told me essentially what's going to happen with places like that, places like Tully's and whatnot. Essentially, you got to adapt and get burnt. And sometimes it becomes a big versus small thing where big businesses like Tully's, Buffalo Wild Wings can handle that new infrastructure. But also, there may be some incentive. And I spoke to one SU professor about that incentive earlier this week.
So it might work out in the end. It might actually convince some of these local restaurants and bars to, yes, let's add this service because it's going to keep the NFL fans this season, and who knows what other sports it will become a destination for in the future.
And Chile, just rounding us out here, covering all sides of this, people are already starting to talk about this sort of streaming fatigue. I know I'm seeing it.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's got their own service now. So what does that mean for streamers and the broadcasters?
You know, I think one thing, too, that Professor Denninger there, as you saw in that last clip, talked about the idea of over-the-air broadcasting. YouTube TV, you know, it's trying to become a destination for sports. We saw Fubo with its push. We saw Hulu with live TV. You've probably all seen the ads. Hulu has live sports. But YouTube TV on that front with Sunday Ticket is still struggling in some regards. If you talk about New York, the only regional sports network available on the service is SNY. You're missing YES. You're not getting the Yankees nets. You're missing MSG, so all your hockey and basketball. You're also missing that as well. And I spoke to Professor Denninger about that.
One of these days, people are going to get tired of spending all this money on individual packages. It might play into the advantages of the broadcast networks, NBC, CBS, and Fox and ABC, the more televisions that become equipped with over-the-air antennas.
And that is the difference, right, between something like the NFL and the MLB, NBA. Over the air, the NFL is still largely available over the air, so a lot of people can plug in an antenna to the back of their TV and still get the games, guys.
Chile, a lot of moving pieces there. I would say YouTube kind of dropped the ball.
They definitely did. It was kind of surprising.
No student price for people like us?
I'm looking forward to hopefully having that, but who knows if we will.
Yeah, well, after the break, an absolutely electric segment.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly, a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where did cats go on vacation? New York.
Welcome back to Market Shares. Teagan Brown joined alongside Bradley Hoppenstein. The Environmental Protection Agency unleashed a landmark set of regulation aimed at growing the electrical vehicle industry. Market Shares number analyst Jacob Goldberg is in studio to break down what exactly the regulations will accomplish.
Thanks, guys. What we're talking about right now, the EPA and the President Biden's administration trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across the United States. And one way they're going to do that is through electric vehicles. That's been a hot button issue across the United States. So what does this new regulation from the Environmental Protection Agency actually do to cut down these emissions? Well, currently greenhouse gas emissions, 30% of them in the United States are from transportation. And what this regulation will do is force car makers to ensure that 2/3 of the cars they produce by 2032 will be electric. Now, how are they going to do that is the question, and make sure this happens? Well, between a 5-year period in 2027 and 2032, they're going to make it a lot harder in terms of regulations for greenhouse gas emissions. This is going to push these car makers towards other sustainable energy sources like electric and various other sources. So reasons behind the regulations, well, we see Michael Reagan, an administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency. He says, this is what we mean when we say tackling the climate crisis is about creating opportunity. And that is what they're doing for the electric vehicle industry. And so companies have been on board with electric vehicles already in the past, even before this regulation was passed. We've seen companies like Acura, Audi, BMW, Buick. You can go down this list. There's many, many more. This is just alphabetical, showing you we're not even through the entire alphabet. Plenty of car companies, big car companies, are going electric, trying to meet those regulations from the EPA by 2032. So now let's look at electric vehicles over time in the United States. We start all the way in 2010, there was no electric vehicles. We go all the way up to current day, and we're seeing over 3 million electric vehicles on United States roads. This is a drastic change from what we've seen in the past, and it's only going to continue to climb. You see this steady growth right behind me in terms of plug-in vehicle sales in the United States. But what is the challenge behind this? Why can't we have 10 million electric vehicles on the road right now? There's just not enough infrastructure. You drive 2 hours down an interstate, you see 50 plus gas stations, but not many electric chargers. And that's the problem we're seeing with the United States. Tesla right now has about 17,000 electric chargers, and they are vastly ahead of any other company, EVgo, Electrify America, ChargePoint, trying to bring that up. But we're going to need that infrastructure to be there if it's going to be sustainable for this many electric vehicles on the roads.
Jacob Goldberg, thank you. After the break, we'll have more about the growing industry. Stay with us.
precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
Welcome back to Market Shares. We're joined by Sean Dempsey and Jacob Goldberg at the desk now. We just talked with you about electric vehicles, kind of what they're looking like, what the outlook is. But I want to ask you even further, what does the future of EV look like?
Well, the future of EV is all about infrastructure. We're seeing it with specifically charging ports. $8.3 million were just given by Governor Hochul in her new budget to try and make charging more accessible for EVs across the state. States like California have already passed this kind of legislation. So as more infrastructure, it continues to build across the United States, more manufacturers will build electric vehicles, and therefore more will be on the road. So I think it's just an upward trend we'll see as more buildings are built, more cars will be on the road.
Yeah, I guess my main concern with it is that it's going to take some time for electric vehicles to become mainstream because of the price, right? We're in a struggling economy. You think consumers have almost $60,000 to go spend on an electric vehicle, never mind the fact that they're going to have to buy an electric charger to put at their house, and then there aren't that many, so when you're driving down the road, there's 50 gas stations down the road, but there may be one electric charger, so that's one concern that I have. Also, we've seen that China, for a fact, has a lot of electric vehicle companies. It's way more popular there than the United States. I think the transition to the United States is going to take a lot longer than people expect.
Yeah, and as you talked about China, we look on the screen. China is vastly ahead of the United States in terms of the amount of electric cars on the road. They have plenty more companies. They're not as profitable. The U.S. has done a good job of keeping the electric vehicle industry profitable, but China way ahead of the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think the biggest two issues facing EVs right now are, one, price. They're all relatively still pretty expensive. And two, we talk about the building out a charging network and building out that EV infrastructure. That's a serious issue. A gas car, not to mention how it takes maybe 2 minutes to fill up your car versus at least 20 at a charging station. But all these electric vehicles are using different chargers, and that's not going to cut it if you're going on a road trip or doing, non-city driving. I want to ask you, Sean, you were talking about Boeing earlier and how travel has kind of picked back up since the pandemic. Do you see that correlating with EV sales at all, or do you think kind of separate issues?
No, they're definitely separate issues, I would say. With electric vehicles, yeah, more companies are trying to go greener because it looks great. And when the economy becomes better, people are going to choose to buy from companies that stand for better things. But with electric vehicles, half the companies aren't even profitable yet, and that's a serious issue. Tesla is not one of them, but that's just something that they're going to have to be looking forward.
All right.
Yeah.
Sean Dempsey and Jacob Goldberg, thank you guys very much. That's all the time we have for you today on Market Shares. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News. Go ahead and like us on Facebook as well. Have a great Sunday. I'm Bradley Hoppenstein.
And we won Best Auxiliary Show for Citrus TV, so thank you to everyone involved at Market Shares.
That'll
I'm
keep
Teagan
them
Brown.
coming back.
That'll keep them coming back. I'm Teagan Brown. Have a great Sunday, Syracuse.